we are very excited to have this stellar panel today here. And I'm very honored to be able to moderate it. My name is Agnieszka Łukaszczyk, and I am a Senior Director for European Affairs at Planet. I'm based in Brussels. And I am here today with Pete Moon, the Director of Commercial Systems Program Office at NRO. Then next to him is Ben Worley, founder and CEO of AgriSource. Then we have Kevin Murphy, Program Exec for Earth Science Data System at NASA. And last but not least, Antoine Rostand, founder and president of Kairos. And we've been talking a lot today about Planet and all the exciting things we're doing, but we really would like to look at the ecosystem at large. We at Planet really very much care about the community, the Earth observation community, and the satellite community and the ecosystem that we operate in. And we would just like to brainstorm a little bit about the trends that we are experiencing right now and hear your thoughts about those trends. Where is this market going? Are we doing the right thing? Are we missing out on anything? Is there anything that we should be focusing on? So if you would like to give your opening remarks on that, if you would like to start, Pete, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you. So as you mentioned, thank you very much. I'm Pete Moon from the National Reconnaissance Office, or NRO. The NRO is, of course, a member of the intelligence community and a DoD agency as well. And we design, build, launch, and operate the nation's eyes and ears in space. Obviously, it's a very dynamic environment. Our targets and collection requirements are increasingly fleeting, very dynamic. And more we have to operate and do that collection in a very contested environment. So it's a more and more challenging area to be in. Now, of course, we don't do it alone. We have our own satellites, of course, that span from very large systems to small sats and CubeSats as well. And by and large, we try to do that in a very, I'll say, heterogeneous architecture, very hybrid architecture. But it's not all just national systems, right? It's increasingly commercial systems that are part of the overall solution set. And so a couple of years ago, we transitioned the role and responsibility for procuring commercial imagery from NGA, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, over to the NRO. So we are going to be the primary acquirer of that imagery, obviously responsive to community requirements, but in a way that's very synergistic between what we can purchase commercially and what's available to meet our needs there, and what we have to design, build ourselves on the national side to meet those hard targets that really aren't available commercially. So that is an exciting new role and responsibility, a tremendous amount of innovation in the commercial sector that we're also excited to take advantage of. But the work really started a couple years ago. Initially, for those of you that are familiar with the area, with the transition of the Enhanced View contract from NGA. And that was a very exciting time, very happy to say that that transition happened seamlessly. But that's really the first of several steps. For those of you that may have been at the GEOINT Symposium, we also announced there this summer that we awarded a number of study contracts to really determine and flesh out how commercial companies can meet our larger set of needs into the future. And I think that really set the basis for where we are now. And today, for those of you that may have seen, we're very happy and pleased to announce that we just awarded a contract with Planet for PlanetScope Dove-class imagery into the future. And it's not a study contract, right? This is actually an operational purchase of imagery because we can see the value in that. And we're eager to start leveraging that imagery and that capability and really work to integrate it into our larger enterprise architecture, right? Make sure it does fit into the architecture and the workflows in a seamless way to make sure that we can get the best value from that, not only for ourselves, but on behalf of the larger community as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for your remarks and for the contract. Ben, would you like to?
Sure. So I represent the agriculture piece up on the panel here. I'm sure many of you have heard the often quoted statistic that over the next 30 years, we have to produce more food than we have in the last 10,000 years combined. And that's partially true. But the whole story really is that we need to get so much more food into the mouths of people who need it. And the sad fact is, we already produce and waste or lose enough food to feed half of the world's population. So if you think about that, this need to grow 70% more is not really true. we're actually wasting enough to cover a lot of that. And so, what that equates to is trillions of gallons of wasted water, the greenhouse gas equivalent of hundreds of millions of cars, all being produced or used to produce food that goes to waste and it never gets eaten. And that's great news. I mean, it sucks because of all the things, but it's great news because it means that in order for us to feed the future population of the world, we don't have to focus on solely producing more out of the acres that we have. We're already producing that. If we can learn to be more efficient with that, then that's a great thing. Another piece of it is almost half of the world's population is engaged in agriculture. So we start looking, it's hard here in the US to sit because we have such a very low percentage of our population that's actually engaged in feeding us, but we produce so much. When you get out into the rest of the world, you start seeing that, there's so many people that are engaged in agriculture, and they're not working for giant farms. These are smallholder farmers. And so it becomes a very delicate balance of how do we ensure food security, environmental sustainability, and social and economic justice. And so at AgriSource Data, our focus is figuring out how can we eliminate or reduce that waste and loss within the food supply chain. And we do that through using multi-source data to feed artificial intelligence to help us provide things like irrigation efficiency optimization, crop health monitoring, and yield forecasting. And so where remote sensing comes in is it really feeds into all of those different verticals. And those are all things that we as a species need to care about because these are existential problems that we're trying to solve. And so the thing that Planet has been able to do to empower us is to be able to provide at scale these types of solutions because of the temporal frequency, because of the spatial resolution, and the ability to go after not just the people who have all of the money that, the very large farms that can afford to do it, but we can also start engaging with those smallholder farmers through co-ops, through NGOs, through downstream members, because when we can align the economic values of the downstream stakeholders with those smallholder farmers, we really create an ecosystem that can be truly symbiotic. And so that you can imagine a smallholder farmer in Vietnam being able to get their food to market and actually keeping most of the money that they made off of producing that. And that's not what happens today. And so that's really our mission and our vision for the world. And Planet has provided us a great access for that. And we look forward to being able to improve that with the continued improvements from the technology.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to hear that we're providing to you useful imagery and information. And often we forget, when we think about agri-companies, we think about these huge agricultural companies, but we need to remember that there are also small farmers that can benefit from the type of data that we're offering. Kevin, would you like to?
Sure, no problem.
Weigh in?
So yeah, Kevin Murphy from NASA, and I guess I'm representing science here today. And NASA's been in the business of doing earth science since its foundation in 1958, and we've always explored new ways to acquire, utilize, analyze information about the Earth. Starting in 1994, we began with an open data policy for the use of our products for any purpose, and we continue with that policy today. We see the advent of these new technologies in the commercial sector complementing the activities that we support with our open data capabilities with the US government and our international partners. And our scientists want to use our products and want to use any products to understand how the Earth systems work, how they interact with each other, and how they influence each other. So we see commercial markets, especially vibrant commercial markets, playing an important role in supporting the development of new techniques, the improved understanding and prediction capabilities for many of the ecosystems or other components of the Earth system. We look forward to working with companies like Planet to understand how their systems work in the context of our analysis capabilities. And we invest, on the order of $200 to $300 million a year in research activities, which are free and open. And we're hopeful that those research activities can be applied to some of these commercial products and benefit not only the companies that develop the products, but also the scientific understanding of the Earth systems.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Antoine, s'il vous plaît.
Merci. So, Kairos is the god of opportunity in the Greek mythology. And the opportunity here comes from two technologies that have been recently available. The first one is availability of high-frequency imagery, thanks to Planet and the EU taxpayers, with Sentinel. But this is really the commodity that we can dig and use automation on. It's very different from looking at a very detailed image, but the fact that we can have the same scene with the same angle, then we can apply automation, and this is a game changer. And the second technology is deep learning, where you can use the neural network to make image treatment that was not possible before basically 2012, something like that. So the fact that we can have imagery and the facility to do computation on top of that is really what makes us here, and is completely changing the nature of geospatial. It used to be something for government, so science and basically defense, but now it is opening to the commercial world, like has happened with internet, mobile phone, GPS. So for me, geospatial is the same nature in terms of potential impact on the world economy as the internet or GPS had. And we expand that at Kairos. We are focused on the energy space for now. We have all the oil companies are traders as our customers, all the traders, all the big banks. So anyone exposed to the price of oil is using our data because it is changing, and it has a systemic impact on the economy. We estimate that our data sets basically remove 3 to 5% of the overall cost of energy on a global basis. So this is systemic. It's working today. It's not something that we dream of. It's happening today. And we are certain that this will evolve to other verticals. Obviously, ag is already very advanced on that, but you can think about construction, insurance, almost natural resources will be impacted in a positive way with this technology. One of the most important things will be also the ability to track emissions and attribute emission to polluters, which will make the debate about carbon price very different because states will be in a position to impose carbon tax because they will be able to have third party checking what are the emission and the carbon content of any manufactured goods. So this geospatial is not something nice, something funny to look at. It will also have a systemic impact on the economy. So we can really thank Planet for what they provide and the EU taxpayers.
Yeah, thank you. I'm one of those taxpayers. I feel it. This actually, but it's interesting that you brought this up, the Copernicus program and the Sentinel program, because that leads me to the next question. We have this established space sector coming from the government, but also maybe from the traditional space industry. And you have a lot of now these new space companies and mega constellations and small satellites. And I would like to ask you, are they? We would like to think that they're complementing. Are we competing? Are they complementing? Can they? Are they filling the gaps in the space sector? What do you think?
So I think there's a little bit of a differentiation between small sats, larger satellites, and their nexus against government or private sector, and certainly the new space enterprise. On our side, on the government side, as I mentioned, we have larger satellites, and we also have smaller satellites as well. And it more has to do with the specifics of the phenomenology and the physics associated with it, as well as, frankly, small sats are obviously ideal for kind of a pathway and a pathfinder to test out and do research and development on new technologies as we look to on board. And I think, frankly, the same thing on the commercial side as well. I think there's different ways to use it, and it really is about striking that balance and seeing how, at least from our perspective, we're looking to find how they complement,
Right.
Across from new space or small satellites to other sets of capabilities, how all those capabilities can come together in a way that's productive, and then, as far as we're concerned, meet the entirety of our needs. Certainly, there are some areas that are unique to some providers and others that are more competitive. And frankly, I think that competition as well is a great thing, and we look forward to approaching those market segments competitively as well in the future.
Anybody else would like to weigh on this?
I would say from the agriculture sector, the ag sector has relied on satellite data for decades, and as resolution increases and spectral bands increase, we've been able to do more and more, and we've learned from it. And then with the entry of commercial players with small sats, CubeSats specifically, but the ability to get that higher frequency, right now at this point in time, we see it as very complementary. So the bulk of our monitoring happens with the small sats because they do the day-to-day and they're the workhorses for that. But there are some very specific mission sets that they're just not quite there yet because of the spectral bands, and that's where the larger constellations come in, specifically for like plant moisture monitoring, for example. So if we want to see canopy moisture levels, we can't do that with most of the commercial systems right now, and so that's where the Sentinel comes into play, and they really balance well with each other. And so being able to tie Planet and Sentinel data together is really important. It'll be interesting to see, though, as the commercial market increases and you increase, to 5-band and 8-band and beyond, if those become supplanted. And we don't know that, but I would say right now, the commercial satellite imagery is certainly standing on the shoulders of what's gone before it. And in the ag industry, from a research perspective, we're able to take the research that was done because of those and really apply it at a much more granular level because of the big constellations of small sats and what they give us.
And I'd have to agree. I mean, it's complementary. There's a whole host of observational capabilities that are available. And having the time increment improved with the Planet data is kind of a game changer in some ways. But there are other portions of the electromagnetic spectrum that yield lots of information, and our scientists will use those other sensing techniques and combine it with this information to come up with kind of novel ways to produce products to understand the environment. And I think it's also important, at least from a government perspective, to provide kind of predictable on-ramps for commercial companies that are innovative and do create substantially new or cheaper types of technologies. And at NASA, we've started a kind of a yearly on-ramping capability to allow the evaluation of commercial systems for inclusion into our research grant process. And if companies go through that process and are evaluated by our scientific groups in a positive manner, we'll certainly enter in longer-term relationships with them so that we can continue to purchase those products for long-term monitoring over time.
Yeah, I mean, it's we are trying to measure human activity, so we would need almost one camera in every room, which is obviously not possible. So for us, it's any new sensor will complement the other one and will remove a bit of uncertainty and give a bit better picture of what we are looking for. Because our model, if we want to be really precise and give reliable information to the financial community, it's data fusion that works. So it's all type of satellites, but geolocation information, tweets, news, web data. So it's really take everything you can to answer a simple question, which is how much oil is in this tank, or what is the activity rate of this refinery. And then it's really by putting that together that you can have reliable information for a decision maker.
Yeah, you've mentioned sensors. Obviously, the sector is changing rapidly, and we're talking about this, especially at Planet. We talk a lot about this agile space. Do you think that we're agile enough? Are we meeting your needs? What do you need? What do you want? What are the sensors that you think are the future?
I think today we are just starting to exploit what is available.
Yeah.
So I think you have been agile enough, and obviously you need to keep doing the great job. But today there is so much information in what's already available between the various constellations and the other data sources that it's, we are really learning on how to use this instrument. Obviously, you need to keep on with more frequency, more cadence, and more, more spectrum. So that's no question on that. But I think we are at a point in time where collectively we need to learn what's the best use of these resources, what are the role of everybody between the imagery providers, analytics, and the last mile. So this is still being configured and will be like that for a bit, some period of time.
So it's not just about the data, obviously, it's the information that the solutions, the end product.
The number of return on investment, positive use case with positive ROI are almost infinite today. The question is where you start, how you market them, how you convince customer that they can use that. So it's preaching, the gospel.
Would you like
Yeah,
to
so I actually think of agility in a couple different ways, both on the industry side as well as on the government side. On the industry side, against collection, I think it's very important to make sure that agility and that innovation kind of stays at a pace. I think as much as you can push new phenomenologies, new aspects out there, there's certainly challenges that go along with that, but I think that's all goodness, and I think just more opportunity space for us. Certainly, we don't want capabilities that are just uniquely tailored to the government sector. We want them to be very broad commercial uptake, or have very broad commercial uptake. But certainly all opportunity space too. And then built on top of that, it's not just about the collection, of course. The imagery itself is interesting, but it's not actually the answer. It's the analytics that you can put on top of it. And I think there's a tremendous, frankly, even probably more innovation and more potential there in terms of drawing out new insights and new ways of looking at the data, especially as new types of collection. So, for example, the higher cadence comes into play. Just more or different ways of drawing out those interesting insights. On the government side, however, I think there's some challenges for us, and the need for agility is equally on our side, both in terms of course, the acquisition and the contracting and making sure we're poised and have an open mind for exactly what is available and how might we take advantage of these new data sources and the analytics that ride on top of them. Making sure on our side our enterprise architecture is agile enough to really integrate these new data sources constructively into our workflows. And our workforce, especially the broader analytic workforce, understands the potential there. And then, of course, have the open mind to change those workflows if it's necessary. If there are new insights and new ways of doing business that are out there, that we're open to modifying those workflows as well.
Thank you.
I think it's kind of a dangerous question to ask an entrepreneur because it's kind of like if you give a mouse a cookie. I don't know if you're familiar with the book, but you give a mouse a cookie, it'll ask for a glass of milk. You give milk, it'll ask for a straw. I think it's very similar in this space because, to Antoine's point, I think we're just really starting to figure out what we can do with this fast cadence. But as soon as we get that figured out, we're going to want more, and so and then more and more and more. So
it's addictive.
It is, and I think that keeping up that pace and that cadence of change and innovation is going to be very important. But as for where we're at right now, I mean, we're very happy with what we've been given. So, but I'll take more.
And I'd say innovate. Yeah. Keep on innovating, make it commercially viable, and that's certainly a good model for NASA to work within those constraints. But it is the full technology stack that needs to innovate, right? I think you're absolutely right. Getting voltages from a sensor is great. But getting accurate voltages over time from a sensor is much better because if you develop these machine learning techniques or other things based on a set of sensing capabilities and they change, you have to go back and retrain things. So there's quite a bit of an investment from application developers or from other folks to train their models and to understand these aspects of production, especially on large spatial scales, right? It's relatively easy to do them on smaller locations, but if you try to scale that up to regions or continents, you find a lot of issues potentially if things are not calibrated well, and that can lead to a lot of spurious types of information content. So innovate, but just make sure that what you innovate is stable.
Yeah.
Right.
Stable and useful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Pete, I actually have a question for you. As you know, Planet's data is unclassified, and we often hear about that sort of unclassified data might not be very useful for governments and for security or defense purposes. What's your take on that?
I don't think that's true at all. I think unclassified data is tremendously useful in ways that the classified data is maybe not as much. We've been using unclassified remote sensing data, commercial imagery specifically, for decades, and to great utility. I think it's really pushed us forward. Obviously, one of the clear benefits is just the shareability of that data, the shareability to mission partners, to coalition partners and allies on the DoD and IC side, but then also to the federal civil sector as well. I think it just opens up many, many more opportunities. And frankly, the data, I think there's more room to innovate there and innovate in a way that leverages not just our unique needs, but across the variety of customers that may be out there that can leverage that data. Certainly, that presents challenges as well. We do need to make sure that our workflow and workforce can interact with the data productively, and of course, where there's always room for improvement there. We can't have things in stovepipes. It does need to be part of the larger integrated architecture, but we're steadily moving down that path, and I think making great and tremendous progress toward that. I will say that there are, as I said, some challenges associated with data, especially commercial data, and not the least of which is the licensing of that data. Sometimes the extent to which we can share data, obviously there's license terms associated with that, as there should be. But sometimes that's more complicated than just the classification of an image. Just because it's more nuanced oftentimes. And I think certainly for us, the increased shareability and the license flexibility is a key competitive differentiator between the various commercial providers' offerings. So that's something that we'll definitely be looking at in the future as well.
Thank you. That's the type of answer we wanted to hear. Thank you very much. I'm thinking about the beginnings of Planet, and a lot of people were very skeptical about Planet's success and if Planet as a company is going to make it. Because we were doing something different, something new. The business model was different. But now we see a lot of companies that are popping up, mega constellations, and new companies, new space companies. Do you think the market is getting saturated? Do you think there's too many players, or do you think there is room for more? Any thought on that?
I would say, it's not up to the government, the U.S. government in this instance, to pick a winner. If it's out there and it's of sufficient quality and utility, we will get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think the market is the component that determines what the level of capability is and saturation. I hope it's not saturated.
Yeah.
Like from a personal perspective,
Right.
I would like to see more. So.
Yeah.
Antoine?
No, we are just at the beginning, so we need more assets. We need more sensors. Clearly we need competition as well for innovation. SAR is different from optical, so I think there is room for several players. The player will always be relatively large. I don't think if you are too small, it's difficult to compete with very large constellation. But clearly, we are just at the beginning of a journey. The more it's a really addictive source of information, and the more company will start using it, there will be more demand, and this will create obviously pool to have more constellation on your side and new players that will be providing more and more information for analytics company like us. Yeah, so just have to be the best one. And
yeah, obviously.
Absolutely.
I'm thinking about verticals, and obviously we've been talking a lot about verticals today, and the markets that we're servicing. They're the usual suspects, obviously, as federal business or agriculture, maybe emergency security. But what do you think are the market verticals out there that may be being underserved right now, but could greatly benefit from geospatial data? Do you have any? I mean, you've been mentioning, Antoine, insurance and
So our sweet spot for us is all about natural resources. So oil, but copper, iron ore, coal, I mean, all the commodities, because the use case is pretty easy. If you can track the supply chain, you can anticipate price movement. So that's a pretty easy use case. And, really the rate of acceptance is extremely fast. We've managed to have, 50 of the top 70 players in less than 12 months. So, so I think in everything around the commodities, it's pretty, it's already moving very fast. Then we'll go, mining is obviously something, because we can do 3D and compete with drones in a much more cost-efficient manner. So that's clearly a big vertical that is open for business. And then insurance is huge, because you can insure something that you could not insure before. So you take crop insurance in Africa, you cannot do it now. You don't have ground infrastructure to do it. Now you can, with satellite imagery, you can do it completely. You can measure the size of the crop and then assess damage in real time. So it's a completely new business for insurer and a fantastic opportunity for growth in these countries. Again, it will be systemic as an impact. It's just starting. It will take some time, but it's an obvious part of the business which is going to grow very fast, we believe.
And I would add on to that too, speaking of insurance and crop insurance, really the financial services sector as a whole, within agriculture, within forestry, within all of the other commodities, you have these banks and governments who are loaning, operating loans and capital improvement loans and things like that. And when you look from a risk mitigation perspective, for them being able to dive deep and see the insights of what's going on within their portfolio would allow them to be much more selective. They can offer variable rates. There's all sorts of derivative benefits that I think that are maybe not at the forefront. When we talk about agriculture, obviously we're very concerned with improving crop yield, crop health and stress management, but you have all these secondary and tertiary aspects to it, things like water management. So we're not just talking about irrigation management, but we're talking about entire ecosystems of water management, watershed, river systems, seas. All of these pieces are interconnected, and so I think the environmental sector. Obviously, I think everyone can see some of the benefits there, but I think we're just beginning to explore the real benefits that greater access to geospatial data could provide to the environmental sector, to financial services. Really, when you talk about those main verticals that kind of get all of the attention, if you just take one step to the side and you look at what are the connected industries to those, I think those are the ones that are being overlooked right now or underserved potentially, that could be the next big wave of use.
I think 5 or 10 years, everybody will have on this, whatever will be phone at that time, the moisture of the grass in your garden, I mean, I think we all have access to real-time imagery, and I mean, it's obvious, It's just a matter of time. So it's come from the military, big business, medium business, and then it will be on retail in 5 years, 10 years from now.
Well, we'll talk about it at Explore 20-something. For sure. I would like to actually open the floor to the audience. If you have any questions you would like to ask the panelists, now would be the time. We have people walking around with mics, so just raise your hand, introduce yourself, and ask your question if you have any. And if not, I'll just keep asking questions, but I thought it would be good to give you opportunity. Gentleman here in the front. There's somebody coming.
Hi, Bobby Shackleton from Bloomberg. Want to dive in deeper on the mining use case. In what way do you think that would be applicable?
So with 3D, you can measure, the volume extracted. So it's a rate calculation, which is important for community business. But also, you can look at, the curvature, and for safety reason, whether you have, the right slope. So this is for operational reasons. So today, a lot of mines are equipped with drones, but with it's not always possible. And if you want to know what your friend, in the mine next to you is doing, you cannot send your own drones, so you can use that. So for business intelligence and understand what's going on, it's very powerful.
Thanks.
Do we have anybody else? I don't really see. No?
Everyone's looking forward to the party.
I mean, there's going to be drinks soon. Don't worry. It is happening. I have a buzzer here that's going to remind me when it's the drink time, so I will let you know. But we still have a few more minutes. So if you have questions, just raise your hand, and in the meantime, I will continue to the discussion here. So this is a bit of an open question, but we're talking about these potential new companies coming up and new sensors and the new ways of thinking. If you were going to give an advice to a company that is kind of entering the market and would like to cooperate with you, be it on the government level or on the commercial level, what would you tell them? What would you tell them to do, or how to direct?
Yeah. Well, I guess very simplistically from my side, it's keep innovating, right? Keep making those opportunities available for us to discover new things in new ways, and then keep forcing us to really confront them and decide what is the best way to use them and see where it provides value to us. And if it does, absolutely we should be there leveraging and using it.
Yeah.
For us, it's really, be open. The challenges that we're trying to tackle are enormous. I mean, they're literally global in scale, and we're not going to do it alone. You're not going to do it alone. And so when we build our data architecture, we do that in an open manner so that we can play well with others. We can, ingest APIs from you or your modules into our platform, or we can export ours to your platform. We don't care whose platform it's on. That's missing the point. The point is solving the problem and doing it in a manner that's effective and cost efficient. For the customers. So if you're going to solve a global problem, you're going to need a global solution for it. And so mine would just be open to playing well with others.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with both of these guys, but I think the other thing is don't underestimate kind of how hard it is to deliver a good user experience when you're trying to find the information that you want, right? There are some users that can certainly process every single pixel that gets pumped out. Mm-hmm. But I think increasingly you see people only wanting the information that meets the criteria that they're trying to work with, right? So, if you're a cloud scientist, you want to find the clouds, but if you're a land cover scientist, you don't want to find the clouds. And you need good ways to filter that information, especially if you have subscription-based models, right? People want to be confident in the information that they get. They want it to be high quality, and they want the information to do the work that they want to do. So that user experience component, I think, on delivery is vital. Mm-hmm. But you got to play well with others because that is the new ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I fully agree with you. I think it's extremely complex to produce quality information, and there is a big risk of new players coming and just, using the buzzword and throwing things that are unreliable and a bit of destroying the market. So we are shaping the market, and it's quite important to produce something of quality so that there is a positive return from this kind of information, which means that I think everybody needs to play where his strengths are. So we are in the analytics business, and we are not going to invest. A lot of my customers ask, why don't you trade on your information? Because I know to do analytics, but I don't know how to trade. So I think keeping where you stand. So you guys, are not unlike some of your competitors trying to go vertical. You are an imagery provider, and you provide that to everybody. We are an analytics company, and then you have people using this information to make decisions. So I think it's quite important that everybody knows where he's playing, and then doing it right so that we all win by creating more markets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. I wanted to actually go back very quickly to the. Oh, we have a question. Okay.
Hi. Quick question. What are your thoughts about getting a global DSM and a DEM to go with it that's at 50 centimeters? So we could do feature extractions on the elevation and a DSM.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would love to have access to a global DSM. It would be fantastic for irrigation modeling. I mean, one of our modules is water management, and so being able to tell a client, especially at a field level, what not only how much water do they need, but how much are they going to use over the next few days, and a lot of that has to do with runoff and figuring out those things. So, from an agricultural perspective, yeah, I would love to. Sign me up.
Well, there's a big search now for that, so that people could use the imagery and be able to calculate the heights at that same thing. So, trying to find that.
I don't know if you'll find anybody that would disagree that we want a high resolution DEM, DTM, DSM, all of them.
Did I see a question in the very back? Yeah, I see it up there.
Hey, how's it going? Kind of a question on the science side. What do you envision NASA being, I guess, involved in with Planet? More like an end user? Are we looking at collaborations in the future? Because there's a lot of satellites NASA have with plenty of bands. Are we looking maybe in the future, infusing that technology together? I'm just kind of curious what you're kind of looking at in a larger scale, if you will.
We're looking across all of our disciplines. Our evaluation of Planet currently includes, I think, 37 or 35 different PIs. And they're everything from cryosphere scientists to land cover and water quality and agriculture, aerosols, all sorts of things. So we're still investigating how the products that Planet provides complement those existing activities. But we see, the capabilities, especially the revisit time capabilities, providing significant amounts of additional capability that we don't currently have. I think we still have some time to figure out how this evaluation concludes, which is in the next couple months, and we'll have a bit of a better answer then on where we see going. But we see it, certainly supporting some unique capabilities that we don't have at this point.
Thank you. I think we're gonna have to wrap it up, but thank you so much. I really appreciate all of your remarks and the discussion, and hopefully we can continue after the panel, but I would like to give you a very big round of applause.